Gee, this isn't working right. Oh, there it is. Boy, I hope this doesn't go on sideways. I guess if it does. Huh. Alright, well anyway, I hope this video, when I download this to YouTube, doesn't go on sideways. I have had one do that before. I think I have this iPad positioned right, I hope. So, I can hear noise out there. And I have a little friend with me. This is a continuation, part 6. Oh, come here, guy. And who do we have? A little Dio. My little friend, he wants to go somewhere too. A little Dio. He should be having his service dog jacket coming soon. Oh, and he's doing so well on his training. Okay, well, I may have to start this over because I can hear things outside, but maybe not. I like to be rather private when I video. This may go on longer, maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, because I actually think I want to go, this is part 6, this patriarchy is not working, the actors, and I think I finished with the water torturer before, and where am I? You know, I didn't prepare here. What is with me? I just came out here and thought I'd flip open the book and be right where I left off, but I'm not. Okay, I'm close though. And you know, in these these abusers, you know, really this is how I see it. This is the way it's been coming down the generations, and this is basically entitlement and how people are raised, men are raised. So. And we are different as a species, you know. It's kind of like somebody wanted to come along and really make things out of balance. You know, they gave women the love and the nurturing, and men the power and the hunting and the cunning and the, you know, although, you know, as people we have those qualities in both of us. So, but you've got to understand that in hunter-gatherer days, it was a man who went out and killed and protected and all that. Somehow, I think it went haywire, you know. We got more into civilization and that whole deal went haywire, so we're still living with it. So you women, you really need to pay attention because you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. Men are more powerful. That's why it's usually the woman who is abused. So let's see where we're at in here. Okay, I ended with the water torturer. Now we're on and these are different personalities. These are just behaviors that have been studied by professionals. They're detached. They aren't emotionally wrapped up in what these people are doing, like so many of the rest of us are in our culture. I think that so many times people don't even recognize, as I've stated before, they don't even recognize this as abuse. This is just a way of life. And it's really destructive. Now it is changing because women are getting educations, they're getting better paying jobs. Sometimes the guy's staying home with the kids because the woman can make more money, you know, and someone's got to stay home with the kids because daycare is just outrageous. So you're seeing that, you know, more and more. So that is becoming more equal, and because of that, there'll be more equality and more functional families. I think, because not just one person has all the power like I was raised with to a T, and my mother and her mother before her. So women have just started to come out of this. Not too long ago, it was a very different scenario, and men are still, the younger men, I don't know, I'm hearing some stuff is worse. And where am I? I'm always worried about my time here. 4 minutes. I'm feeling that they're more, you know, they're going to have more respect for women. I'm feeling that. I think so. Anyway, let's try to get to the drill sergeant today, Mr. Sensitive, and the player, as long as it takes. And then the next one we'll do, I guess, will be 7. And I've been about with, my programming, the way I was raised was so severe, that it just, of course I'd find someone who was highly narcissistic or abusive each and every time, even if they didn't seem that way. At some point, they took off that mask and revealed who they were. So there's Rambo. So the victim, they act like they're the victim instead of you being the victim, Sometimes you hear about how guys are so abused by women. Hey, I'm sorry. Usually it's the biggest bunch of crap. Truly. It just isn't true. So there is some of that, I understand. But really, it's the other way around. There's the terrorist. Yeah. Personal terrorist. Instead of a personal trainer, you have a personal terrorist. So let's get to these three. And then when I go on with this, I want to continue with these subjects. I almost wish that I would have didn't really know what I was doing when I created this channel. I was just playing around, really, just for my kids and my grandkids. But, this is important to me. And I think it's important to younger women. We just had the Chris Watts thing just happen. I watched all of that, even to his interrogations and him confessing and all the court recordings. He is typical. Truly, he may be a psychopath, but he may have been I don't know. Anyway, it's pretty typical. That's the ultimate abuse. You kill everybody. So I think this stuff is still going on. All right, the drill sergeant. Let's get to the drill sergeant. And you know what? I know the drill sergeant, and they are dangerous. And I hope I can read in this light. The drill sergeant takes controlling behavior to its extreme, turning his partner's life in every way that he can. He entices her, he criticizes her clothing, tells her whether she can go out or not, interferes with her work. He wants her to have no one close to her, so he ruins her relationships with friends and relatives or simply forbids her to see them. He may listen to her phone calls or read her mail or require the children to report on her activities anytime he is away. She feels like a little girl. I really am having a little trouble. Wish I had stronger reading glasses in this light. She feels like a little girl living with a tyrannical father with no more freedom than an 8-year-old would have. The drill sergeant is often fanatically jealous. He verbally assaults his partner with accusations that she is cheating on him or checking out other men, and tosses crass and disturbing sexual terms into his tirades. He may augment his hateful remarks about his partner with hideous comments about females in general. I've got those lights on. Let me turn this on too. See if that helps. That's a little bit of help there. Okay. Where were we? He may augment his hateful remarks about his partner with hideous comments about females in general, such as all women are whores. The emotional experience of these verbal attacks can be similar to that of a sexual assault. The woman is left feeling violated, debased, traumatized. At the same time, this style abuser, more often than not, is out having affairs himself. Okay. It isn't fidelity he cares about, it's possession. The drill sergeant is, unfortunately, almost sure to be physically violent, sooner or later probably beginning with threats and then eventually escalating to assault. If his partner stands up to him, such as by attempting to preserve any of her rights to freedom, his violence and threats are likely to escalate until she is hurt or terrified enough that she submits to his control. He is a risk to beat his partner up to the point of severe injury. And the drill sergeant can be a well-educated man too, don't kid yourself. Getting away from the drill sergeant can be difficult, since he monitors the woman's movements so closely. It is a challenge for her to get to a support group for abused women or to seek other kinds of support. Since he isolates her from people, she has to draw entirely on her own strength. And many days she may feel like she doesn't have much strength left. Probably not much hope either. And since from time to time he is probably openly violent, she is forced to consider what the consequences of attempting to leave him would be, including whether he might try to kill her. Yeah. If your partner is a drill sergeant, your situation is a dangerous one. You may have to use some courage, or as well as careful vigilance, to even get the opportunity to read this book. You might want to, very carefully hide them. Perhaps you are hiding it under a mattress or reading it at someone else's house in quick bits. Don't give up. Many women have gone through this kind of captivity. Now, this really is not about men and women. This is really about human rights. It is. This kind of captivity, and have found a way to escape even if it takes some time. The single most important thing to do is to seek opportunities to phone a hotline for abused women. See resources in the back of this book. And by the way, here is the book. And I'm not sure I've shown this book each time I've done the characters, the actors. But here is the book. And it is, it's not easy reading. Okay. Emotionally, it's not easy reading. Okay, but it is the truth. All right. The single most important thing to do is to seek opportunities to phone a hotline for abused women. Okay, see the resource in the back of the book. Call them to speak for 5 minutes if that is all you can safely do for now. Call every day if you can. The hotline is the beginning of the path to freedom. You may be sorely tempted to have a secret affair. This happens. Since your partner shows you so little kindness or tenderness. A positive sexual connection may be especially affirming for you because of how sexually degrading the drill sergeant tends to be. But cheating on him can be deadly. If he catches you, consider holding off on seeing other men until you have gotten yourself safe. The drill sergeant often has some psychological problems, although mental health issues do not cause abusiveness. They can intensify a man's violent tendencies. If he sometimes seems to become convinced of things that are obviously not true, has trouble getting along with people in general, was severely abused or neglected as a child, or has had other indications of mental illness, you need to take even greater caution. To read more about dealing with dangerous abusers, see The Terrorist, later in this chapter, page 99, and Leaving an Abuser Safely in chapter 9. I wish there were more organizations that really help women get back on their feet and to give them some, find out why they're attracting these. Some of this, you just can't tell. They just go for kind, empathetical women who don't feel like they deserve much in life and are looking to the guy for all the leadership, you know? I was raised that way. Okay, what would you know better? The central attitude driving the drill sergeant are, I need to control your every move or you will do it wrong. I know the exact way that everything should be done. You shouldn't have anyone else or anything else in your life besides me. I'm going to watch you like a hawk to keep you from developing strength or independence. I love you more than anyone in the world, but you disgust me. Okay, that's the drill sergeant. And, you know, the reason I'm going through these characters is this is where you may recognize someone you're with. You really honestly don't know what's going on. You're internalizing it as if, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? I get, yeah, you know. Some stuff, when they get into physical violence, I mean, you know that's wrong. But some of this other stuff, emotional and mental, you don't. They hit you at all your blind spots and vulnerabilities. Mr. Sensitive. Mr. Sensitive appears to be the diametric opposite of the drill sergeant. He is soft-spoken, gentle, and supportive. I wish I could see better. I didn't. It just isn't okay. It's really dark up here. I mean, I don't know, what time is it? Oh, I guess it's kind of getting late. Can't see good out here. Yeah. Okay. Let's go on. When he isn't being abusive, he loves the language of feelings, openly sharing his insecurities, his fears, and his emotional injuries. Let me start over. Mr. Sensitive appears to be the diametric opposite of the drill sergeant. He is soft-spoken, gentle, and supportive. When he isn't being abusive, he loves the language of feelings, openly sharing his insecurities, his fears, and his emotional injury. He hugs other men. He may speak out about the absurdity of war or the need for men to get in touch with their feminine side. Perhaps he attends a men's group or goes on men's retreats. Often he has participated extensively in therapy or 12-step programs or read all the big self-help books. So he speaks the language of popular psychology and introspection. His vocabulary is sprinkled with jargon like developing closeness, working out our issues, and facing up to hard things about myself. This is why I call these people actors. That's what they are. They can twist the truth. They're not sincere. He presents himself to women as an ally in the struggle against sex role limitations. To some women, he seemed like a dream come true. So what's wrong with this picture? Nothing obvious yet, but this is exactly the problem. Mr. Sensitive wraps himself in one of the most persuasive covers a man can have. You know, sheep clothing over wolf, you know, type thing. Okay. If you start to feel chronically mistreated by him, you are likely to assume that something is wrong with you. And if you complain about him to other people, they may think you must be spoiled. You have the new age man. What more do you want? The following dynamics are typical of a relationship with Mr. Sensitive and may help explain your feeling that something has gone awry. Number 1. You seem to be hurting his feelings constantly, though you aren't sure why, and he expects your attention to be focused endlessly on his emotional injuries. If you are in a bad mood one day and say something unfair or insensitive, it won't be enough for you to give him a sincere apology and accept responsibility. He'll go on and on about it, expecting you to grovel, as if you had treated him with profound cruelty. Notice the twist here. This is just what an abuser accuses his partner of doing to him, when all she is really looking for is a heartfelt, "I'm sorry." And when your feelings are hurt, on the other hand, he will insist on brushing over it quickly. He may give you a stream of psychological language. Just let the feelings go through you. Don't hold on to them so much. Or, it's all in the attitude you take towards life. Oh, God. Man. Spare me. I think this sounds familiar. It's all in the attitude you take toward life. Or, no one can hurt you unless you let them. To substitute for genuine support for your feelings, especially if you are upset about something he did. None of these philosophies applies when you upset him, however. With the passing of time, he increasingly casts the blame on to you for anything he is dissatisfied with in his own life. Your burden of guilt keeps growing. He starts to exhibit a mean side that no one else ever sees and may even become threatening or intimidating. Mr. Sensitive has the potential to turn physically frightening, as any style of abuser can, no matter how much he may preach nonviolence. After an aggressive incident, he will speak of his actions as anger rather than abuse, as though there were no differences between the two. He blames his assaultive behavior on you or on his emotional issues, saying that his feelings were so deeply wounded that he had no other choice. Many people reject the possibility that Mr. Sensitive could be an abuser. I ran into this disbelief one weekend when I was leading a training course on emotional recovery, so I periodically do. My workshops focus partly on the healing effects of crying, and so tend to be attended by more women than men. The males who do come have included many of the most wonderful men it has been my good fortune to know, as well as a handful of the biggest manipulators. A few years ago, a participant named Deanna approached me anxiously before a workshop. She explained that an ex-partner of hers named Brad had called her a few days ahead of the workshop to tell her he was attending the same weekend. She was uncomfortable and told him that if he showed up, she would leave. He promised not to bother her, though, and said he would not bring up their relationship in any way. He was coming with his new girlfriend, which eased Deanna's worries. I spent some time talking with Brad at this workshop, as this workshop was starting, without mentioning Deanna. And he seemed likable, kind, and, what can I say, sensitive. However, I observed within a few hours that he was, in fact, speaking to other people about his past with Deanna and getting them riled up about her running away from their unresolved issues. On Sunday morning, he finally provided a scene about their relationship in front of the full workshop, which was humiliating to Deanna. The story does not end here. I called a break and took Brad aside. I told him that it was my understanding that he had agreed not to raise these issues and that it had become obvious to me that he had come for the weekend with the intention of doing precisely what he had promised not to do. I went on to point out that he had taken Deanna's weekend away from her and that I considered this kind of power move to be abuse, especially since it was directed at an ex-partner. Saying the word abuse to an abusive person can be like lightning a tinderbox. When you name the unmentionable secret, he goes wild. Brad got loud, rolled his eyes at what a hysterical exaggeration he considered me to be, and adopted a victim stance, saying, "I beg you to stop this." Then came the most important part. He said in a screeching whine, I have only put a hand on a partner once in my life, many years ago, and I just barely pushed her away from me like this," and he shoved me hard by the shoulder, after she called my mother a sick woman. Well, why was Brad denying a history of assault while actually admitting to one when I hadn't said anything about violence? The possibility that he might be physically abusive had never occurred to me before, but it certainly did now. The signs were all there, bullying Deanna that weekend and then insisting it was for her own good, feelings entitled to ignore an important agreement, blaming his earlier girlfriend for his assault of her and minimizing it. The strength of the shove he gave me would have shaken up most women. I now doubt that the assaultive incident he had described was his own occasion of physically intimidating a woman. At this point, I required Brad to leave. Thank goodness. At this point, I required Brad to leave the workshop. I then had to deal with a mini insurrection from some of the other workshop participants who couldn't believe I was ejecting this gentle man who was so in touch with his feelings. He cries, after all. How could he be abusive? Yeah. This gentleman style of abuser tends to be highly self-centered and demanding of emotional catering. He may not be the man who has a fit because dinner is late, but rather erupts because of some way his partner failed to sacrifice her own needs or interests to keep him content. He plays up how fragile he is to divert attention from the swath of destruction he leaves behind him. So, the central attitudes driving Mr. Sensitive are: I'm against macho men, so I couldn't be abusive. As long as I use a lot of babble, no one is going to believe that I am mistreating you. I can control you by analyzing how your mind and emotions work and what your issues are from childhood. I can get inside your head whether you want me there or not. Nothing in the world is more important than my feelings. Women should be grateful to me for not being like those other men. Well, I am going to end with the descriptions here today because it's getting so dark I can't see. Maybe I can do another one tomorrow, and we are at 26 minutes. I hope someone is enjoying these videos and getting something out of them. I just really don't know how to really do the YouTube thing that well, and I think, I may have missed, 3 weeks here, but on doing a video, so I just think that they will get watched when they're supposed to get watched, and I do think it's important. And through the years, who knows, that there'll probably be more views. And I'm sorry, if this is the first one you're watching and you go back to my first one, I don't have any equipment. I'm not a professional in one. I don't know why the iPad battery was dead. I was doing it in the bedroom, and so I had to run around and get it plugged into a very short little cord. So I hope that you will bear with that and just listen to what I'm saying here, and in these descriptions too. It's the part of the book I thought was the most important, because there's so many different styles for these people. And I watched all this stuff on Chris Watch, because you think, what, God, how does this happen? I don't. He killed those three, his family, and I think he didn't want to pay child support. He didn't want him in his life anymore. This goes on, and that's the worst is when people lose their lives. I mean, I listened to the texts they were having and the affairs he was having, and I listened to his confession, and I think he got the idea that she killed her kids from the interrogator. If you all have not watched that, because that's where he says happened at Malarkey. Don't believe it. Not for a second. So, this is important, and this is a problem in our society. It starts in the home. I know I've said this before. It really does. These narcissistic behaviors start in the home. And, I got to tell you, it's not just the narcissistic fathers. He does say, and I do think it's true, they teach their sons that, but I think sometimes the mothers have a lot to do with it too. So watch out for the guys that are real attached to their mothers. There's something not quite right there. I don't know if they're always abusive, but parents sure need to let go of their children. And I think sometimes parents don't. So I don't want to say too much more about that, because I looked at that in that case too. That's the son who can do no wrong. They never learn any empathy unless he's a psychopath, which he may be. And they have something wrong in their brain. They do not have emotions. So I think this is the struggle we have with AI too. That as we're building robots and AI is beginning to learn, God, they'd be just, it could be, sure it could be evil. They have no emotions. You know, that's really what really makes us very human, our emotions. And we feel, we're alive, we feel. So psychopaths, I guess they, you know, they act a lot. And they're thrill seekers and risk takers so they could feel something, you know. And okay, well, we'll end here, and it'll probably take forever to download this, and I hope it's not sideways. I guess I'll take this off if it is. I don't know how to turn it around if it is, you know. So, listen. I'll see you on the inner and fill you in my heart, and may the blessings that need to come to someone at the right time, I hope that they find these videos and it frees them, and they find some peace and some hope. All right, bye.